I have some very sad news for all of you, and I think sad news for all of our fellow citizens and people who love peace all over the world. And that is that Martin Luther King was shot and was killed tonight in Memphis, Tennessee.
Maybe I could understand the denial of certain basic First Amendment privileges because they haven't committed themselves to that over there. But somewhere I read of the freedom of assembly. Somewhere I read of the freedom of speech. Somewhere I read of the freedom of press. Somewhere I read that the greatness of America is the right to protest far right.
Welcome back to Inside Politics. We are marking the 50th anniversary of the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King at the Lorraine Motel in Memphis. You've just heard excerpt from a remarkable speech by Senator Robert Kennedy he made in the African American community in Indianapolis on the night Dr. King was killed. You also heard Dr. King an excerpt from his final speech, which was made at the Mason Temple Church, also down in Memphis the night before. Our two guests this week are Reavis Mitchell, history professor at Fisk University, and Dwight Lewis, longtime editor and reporter at the TENNESSEAN. Gentlemen, 1968, in addition to the King murders, was probably the most tumultuous year in politics that I can ever remember. Not only you had the Vietnam War going on, President Johnson decided not to run, you had a tumultuous presidential campaign. What was in the water or the air that year that made it such a unique year?
Well, it was the beginning of sort of a coming to age for urban folk, black folk in inner cities. They understood. It was a coming of age for young people who understood that if Vietnam was to be challenged, they would do it. It was a coming of age for America. You know, just one comment about King. Everybody says, but it's amazing that he was prophetic, that he would say, you know, he felt his end would come. In a wonderful biography by Dr. C. Eric Lincoln, interviewed King, he said King understood that every movement needed a prophet and needed a martyr. He understood not to compare himself to Jesus Christ, but the death of Jesus Christ was a catalyst for Christianity. And he understood that to bring forth this movement, to bring forth what he wanted, civil rights and change, it may take the loss of life, and he was prepared.
Dwight, we saw that excerpt from Robert Kennedy. 2 months later, he would be killed by an assassin. He was told not to go into Indianapolis that night, that it was too tense, but he did it. Do we have enough politicians today who wanted to take chances like that?
You may have one or two. We don't have enough. You look at the Tennessee State Legislature and some of the votes that have been taken there this session.
Yes.
You look at look at Congress. Look to Washington D.C. I'm not going to say people don't have the guts, but you look back to the times when Tip O'Neill and others were in office and how the Republicans, look at Watergate, what happened, Republicans and Democrats came together to do what was best for this country.
And you mentioned Lyndon Johnson. He understood that the civil rights movement was going to bring about a change, and he signed that bill, but he understood it was going to be his political nadir, was going to be the end. He took a stand on Vietnam, but he was more willing to do that than to move forward with another term as president. We don't find figures doing that now.
You mentioned voting rights.
Exactly.
But in terms of progress, if someone had told you the night that Dr. King was killed, or within a week after that within a generation, his birthday in January would be commemorated, his life would be honored as a national holiday, that the Lorraine Motel would become the site of the National Civil Rights Movement. Would you have believed that to be possible?
Maybe not. Maybe not. At that time, one day you would hope that there would be an African American president or a woman who would be president.
But you would hope.
You would hope.
But you would have thought that was possible at that time.
It would have been. You would hope. You have hoped.
I think what's more significant is 25 years after King, we thought we'd come so far, and we had in America to end up where we are today. You know, the legacy of King, the legacy of Lyndon Johnson and Robert Kennedy, and all that was moving forward is difficult to imagine happened in this country, given where this country is right now.
How much of what we've seen in this progress, including what we have now with Dr. King being commemorated and remembered on the National Mall with a monument, is that real progress in terms of race relations and civil rights, or is it just political correctness?
We've made progress in area of civil rights, race relations, but not enough. We take, seem like one step forward, then it seems like it's 2 steps backward. And you know, just look at what's going on. I walk around my house or out, and I think about how can we really change things. You know, what the president said about the NFL football players, and then I look at football around the SEC, and look at basketball. People can go, blacks and whites, you know, it's mostly whites, majority whites, go cheer for these young men and women on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, and then after the game, they're just another N-word.
We thought we reached such a peak when Perry Wallace out of Pearl High School goes and becomes nationally recognized at Vanderbilt. Willie Brown out of Father Ryan goes down to MTSU. We thought we were moving, but now to have a national leader defame football as a national pastime. I mean, it's played in college, it's a part of the American dream, part of life to have such ascension. But Pat, to your earlier question, I think the greatest legacy of King is the idea of social change through nonviolence. And now we see that around the world. We see these movements. We see the Me Too movement. We see Black Lives Matter, and they all profess to use nonviolence. Now, sometimes they do become violent, but King's idea, the great image that's left, is social change through nonviolence, through citizen participation. But it's so disappointing to hear that the President of the United States may send troops to the Mexican border.
Dr. Reavis Mitchell is our guest on Inside Politics, a history professor at Fisk University, along with Dwight Lewis, who's a longtime editor and reporter at the TENNESSEAN. Back to continue our conversation as we look back 50 years later on the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King. Stay with us on Inside Politics, back after these messages.